What if I told you that Abraham, the father of three world religions, once bowed down and paid tribute to a mysterious priest-king who ruled Jerusalem 1,000 years before King David was even born? A figure so powerful that ancient texts describe him as having neither beginning of days nor end of life, yet modern Christianity has reduced him to a single Bible verse that most people skip right over. His name was Melchizedek, and tonight, we're diving into the forbidden manuscripts and lost gospels that reveal why the early church fathers desperately tried to erase his true identity from history. Every faith has a cornerstone, a sacred point of origin. For Judaism and Christianity, that cornerstone is Abraham, the nomadic patriarch, the father of nations, the man who set the course of history toward monotheism. We are told his story in meticulous detail, his call from Ur, his covenant with God, his long journey to the promised land. But embedded within Genesis, in one fleeting, almost accidental passage, is an encounter so profound, so utterly subversive, that it hints at a history older, darker, and more complex than the biblical authors ever intended us to know. After Abraham's first great military victory, he is met not by a rival, not by a local chieftain, but by a figure of immense, unearthly authority. He comes from an ancient city called Salem. He offers bread and wine. And then, he blesses Abraham, in the name of El Elyon, the Most High God. This wasn't a meeting. It was a coronation. Genesis chapter 14. A war among kings. A desert scorched by the sun. Abraham, then still called Abram, returns from battle, carrying the spoils of victory and the rescued captives of Sodom. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was priest of El Elyon, the Most High God. And he blessed Abram. That's all the text gives us. 3 lines. 3 lines that threaten to unravel the entire theological structure that came after. Archaeologists tracing the Amarna letters found records of Ur-Usalim, Jerusalem, long before the Israelites existed. It was a sacred city, ruled by a priest-king, serving the high God of heaven. That king was Melchizedek. And that means the very ground of Jerusalem was already holy, already consecrated, long before Abraham set foot there. This changes everything. Because it means the religion of Abraham didn't begin in isolation, it evolved out of an older faith that already worshipped the Most High. A universal God whose name echoed through Canaan long before the name Yahweh was ever spoken on Sinai. Melchizedek wasn't a Hebrew. He wasn't chosen by Moses. He wasn't born of Levi's bloodline. Yet Abraham, God's chosen man, pays him tribute. A priest before priests existed. A king before kings were anointed. A worshiper of the Most High before monotheism had a name. The ancient world knew of priest-kings who ruled both the temple and the throne. In Sumer, in Egypt, and Canaan, they stood as divine mediators between the gods and men. But the Israelites would later divide that power, kings in one house, priests in another. Melchizedek stood before that division, and for that reason, he became dangerous. When Abraham kneels, he isn't just accepting a blessing. He's acknowledging authority. In that single act, the patriarch of monotheism bows to a forgotten priest of an older God. And then, silence. Melchizedek vanishes from the story. No lineage. No death. No record. Just absence, too deliberate to be coincidence. The encounter between Abram and Melchizedek reads like a fragment from a lost epic, a remnant left unedited in a text too ancient to completely control. And that's exactly what it was, a theological fossil from an age when gods walked among kings, and some kings claimed to be gods. For centuries after Genesis, Melchizedek disappears. No prophet mentions him. No psalm recounts his deeds. No genealogy records his death. It's as if history itself erased him. But then, 1,000 years later, his name reemerges, whispered through the Psalms of King David. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. Why would David, Israel's most powerful king, invoke the name of a forgotten priest from another religion? Because David, too, sought something beyond the temple. He wanted legitimacy not tied to the tribe of Levi, but to something older, something eternal. The order of Melchizedek wasn't a priesthood by blood. It was a priesthood by divine right. A lineage of those who served the Most High directly, without temple, without intermediaries. That idea was revolutionary. And dangerous. Because if one could be a priest without lineage, if one could commune with God without the temple, then the entire religious hierarchy of Israel could collapse. Centuries later, deep in the catacombs of Rome, early Christians revived his name. In the letter to the Hebrews, the writer declares, Christ is a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. A bold statement, and a coded one. They weren't comparing Jesus to Aaron, the temple priest. They were comparing him to the mysterious king of Salem, the one who predated the temple, preached to no nation, and served a God beyond religion. Bread and wine. The same symbols. The same act. The same priesthood revived. But power never welcomes competition. By the 4th century, as Christianity merged with empire, the mystery of Melchizedek became a problem. He represented a faith without priests, a God without intermediaries, a kingdom within, not ruled by men. So they buried him again. The Gnostic Gospels, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and the Nag Hammadi texts all mention him. Not as a man, but as a celestial being, a mediator between heaven and earth. Some even called him the Son of Light, the first priest of creation, a being who never died. And the church called that heresy. But secrets don't stay buried forever. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered, scholars found fragments that described Melchizedek, the heavenly deliverer, who would one day judge the fallen spirits and proclaim liberty to the righteous. Not a mortal king. Not a symbol. A cosmic figure. A Messiah before the Messiah. That single scroll shattered centuries of silence, because it proved what the ancient scribes tried to hide. That the cult of Melchizedek didn't vanish. It went underground, waiting for the right moment to resurface. So who was he? A man? A god? A symbol of the eternal priesthood beyond time? Or was Melchizedek something far more dangerous? A living remnant of the ancient Most High faith. Before the world divided the divine into tribes and temples,